Good evening, Hawk fans. 79-66 the final. Iowa falling to the TCU Horned Frogs on this Saturday evening, capping what has been a frustrating weekend for Hawkeye sports. We've got a women's basketball game on Sunday that, if it goes the way I expect it to go, will only add insult to injury. I hope I'm wrong, but we're here to talk about the men's basketball team this evening and the struggles on the hardwood down in Niceville, whatever it is. Still don't know the proper name of the Florida town. In the Emerald Coast Classic. Iowa outplayed in every phase of this game, folks. And concerning. I mean, there's no question about it. I mean, give up 55% from the field. TCU made just 5 threes in this game. Just 5 threes made for the Horned Frogs. And yet, they nearly go for 80. Iowa didn't play really much of any defense this evening. Frankly, I hate to say that. TCU only attempted 14 threes. They are a physical team on both ends, all right? And physicality is proving to be an issue so far. We saw Iowa struggle to match Clemson's physicality yesterday, okay? And now we've seen it in 2 straight games. Iowa struggling to match the opponent's physicality, and they didn't pay for it yesterday because Clemson is just not nearly as good as TCU is collectively. Mike Miles Jr. was spectacular. This is his second game back off an injury, his first game back in the starting lineup. Iowa struggled themselves from the field, but still shot 43%. I mean, that should you should be able to at least have a shot late in a ball game. If you only give up 5 threes and shoot 43% from the field yourself, you should at least have a shot. And the score was not. The score is not an indication of how lopsided this game was. I believe it was a 21, 22-point victory at one point. So we'll get to all that. I will say this, folks. Coach Gary Close was scheduled to be with us this evening. He is currently en route back to the state of Wisconsin, so he will not be joining us, and that's okay. Gary puts in a lot of time for this show, and we want him to get back safely. And I don't know what else we can really say. I do want to talk to Gary. I want to talk to Gary about exactly why Iowa struggled to this extent on the defensive end. But we'll be able to talk about that in the future. Let's get to our first phone call. Thank you for calling Iowa Postgame here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line?
Yeah, this is Bob from Des Moines.
Hey, Bob.
Yeah, it's one of them games. They hit a buzzsaw, and when you don't hit your shots and you're not physical and the other team gets out and going, there ain't much you can do about it. They still need a big man, but it's a bad night. They'll be better.
Well, Bob, you're not going to win many ball games. First of all, shooting, yeah, you shot 43%, but you give up 55%. And how many layups did TCU have in this game? Layups and dunks. That is the epitome of bad defense. When you're giving up open threes, layups, and dunks, that's a result of poor defense. And the zone didn't work. They went with the full court press at one point. That didn't work. I hope that they can fit. I think the biggest concern of mine, Bob, is the physicality side of this, because it's clear that being undersized, and you got guys out there like Patrick McCaffrey and Peyton Sandford, who's a second-year guy, and they're playing a lot of Desante Bowen, who's a true freshman. When you get a Jamie Dixon type of team, and they don't come around every day, but when you get a team like this that can match your physicality and then some, I think Iowa's going to struggle on offense. And so when you're not defending at a very high level, this is what you're going to get.
Yeah, they just, they didn't shoot real good. As good as what they had, 3 of 17 from 3 points tonight.
3 of 7. 3 of 17.
Yeah, and they got out quick. And I still think, lack of a big man is going to kill them, because they're going to get to the Big Ten and you're going to have these games. But they'll still do okay. They'll win their share. But they're going to have some that they look pretty bad in, too.
Well, the silver lining with this, Bob, and there is a silver lining, is it's early. This is a good TCU team they lost to. I understand TCU had a bad loss to Northwestern State earlier in the season, but they were down. I believe they were down their star player, Mike Miles Jr., in that game. So this is a good TCU team they lost to, and you can use it as a learning experience. It wasn't a game at home. It was on a neutral site. This is not going to be a bad loss come March. So you hopefully learn a lot. Chris Murray struggled monumentally, and I hope he uses these last 2 days as a learning experience because he's got a long ways to go before conference play.
Yeah, I think they pretty much wadded this game up, threw it in the trash can already, and heading down the road.
There you go, Bob. That's the way you got to look at it. Yep. Learn from it, but digest it and move on.
Yep. All right. Well, good talking to you. Great show. Go Hawks.
Thank you, Bob. Go Hawks. Appreciate the phone call from Bob down in Des Moines. Phone line is open, 515-635-1601. Kyle, welcome into the show, sir.
How you doing, Corey?
Doing all right, man. Nah, who am I kidding? It sucks right now.
Yeah, I know. Thank you for your honesty. I appreciate your comment. I think, the fact that it's early is something to be thoughtful about, and I don't feel majorly concerned, not because there aren't things to address, but coming into the year, I wasn't quite sure what to think. I wasn't 100% sure that we had addressed some of the things that would get us beyond the second day of the tournament. Some things like guard play and defensiveness and things like that. But that being said, I really, especially in the first half and second half, sure was ugly, but it's just so encouraging. There were times last year when we'd have J-Bo, Connor, Sanford, and Phillip all on the court at the same time. And all those guys just had done and do good things for our team. And I'm grateful for the contributions they have. But there's a reason a lot of them, there's a reason Connor, a lot of people talk about him just being really great with the intangibles, right? There's just several plays tonight where Tony Perkins, their really good guard, picks his pocket, dribbles all the way down, finishes through contact. The one thing I feel encouraged by is just our guards are different. We've kind of been stuck with J-Bo the last 5 years, and man, he was such a great player, and I was grateful for all he did. But it is a guards game, and the Wisconsin North Carolina game, I watched the end of that a couple days ago, and Tyler Wall, I think, had the ball and shot the last 8 or 9 shots in regulation and overtime. And so I guess all I'm saying is I'm excited about our athleticism and how it's a little bit different, and that we have some guards who have the ball. Desante Ball and some of the things he can do with the ball, it's I don't really know what to expect this year. I think it'd be great if we could get to the tournament, and so maybe that's why I'm not feeling as concerned. But I guess basically what I'm saying is I feel more excited about who's on the court and their upside. I think in the past we've seen Fran much more timid to, with Joe T, it was very clear, even by some of Joe T's comments, that there was very much a restriction on him about what he could do. And for whatever reason, Tony doesn't seem to have that restriction. I'm grateful for that. He seems to be able to create a little bit more and have the freedom. So all that's to say, I do feel excited about the athleticism that we have on the court, because I think that's what wins games down the stretch when it's close. I think you saw that in the Clemson game, people being able to dribble, drive, create. That's how this game kind of works. At the end of the day, the good athletes win.
I agree with everything you just said. I do think this is a game where they missed a guy like Joe Toussaint.
Yeah, for sure.
Because,
yep.
I was frustrated too by Tony Perkins this evening, because he's got moments, and he's still young. I mean, I shouldn't say he's young. He's not young. He's still inexperienced being a point guard at this level.
Yes.
So he's got a learning curve there. He got into foul trouble yesterday. What did he end up with today for fouls? He ended up with just 2 fouls tonight. So kind of bounced back in that regard. But I do believe this, Kyle, based on what we saw this evening. I don't believe this is an indication of where this team will be defensively in a month, and maybe that's wishful thinking. But my reason for that line of thinking, Kyle, is exactly what you just transcribed, and that is, I believe personnel-wise,
yes,
they are built to be a better defensive team, regardless of what they're getting behind the scenes. The likes of Aaron Eulis, who I think is a really good defender. Tony Perkins has been a really good defender. Those guys just got to lock in. I mean, there are moments, and I saw it creep up yesterday, and it certainly creeped up with better guard play on the opposing end today, where guys are just getting manhandled on defense. We're talking. And Miles is great, by the way. That kid is. There's a reason
Really
why
good.
there are scouts there watching him.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to body up and be tough. And I hate to say that, but I thought they got pushed around this evening, and
Yep. 2 straight games, we saw them have struggles with it.
the commentators brought it up, and I don't love that commentating crew for CBS Sports. They brought it up at one point, Kyle. They made the observation that, Fran he's got these high octane offenses, but they're kind of a finesse style. And that's what they've been since Fran's been here. I mean, I think back to the 2013 Big Ten tournament where Iowa got manhandled and got pwned by the referees in the Big Ten tournament against Michigan State when they should have went to the NCAA tournament. They won the game, got completely put over a barrel by the officials. But I can't help but remember in that game and basically every game back in the early Fran era against Michigan State, against Ohio State, Iowa consistently getting dominated physically. Even when you had really skilled guys like Jared Utoff and Adam Woodbury, and some people say Adam Woodbury wasn't skilled. He's a good defender.
Yeah, he was.
Mike Gasell. I mean, you just go down the list. They had good skill players, but you don't have guys who can match the physicality of the toughest, most physical teams in the conference. And TCU plays like a Big Ten team.
Yep.
So
I at the end of the day, when I would hear stuff coming out of last year from the locker room post-game interviews, like, yeah, we just got to get after it better. We got to be more focused. We got to rebound better. I always sort of went, yeah, but like, do you really have the athletes to do it? Like, God bless everything that J-Bo did for us, but like, dude just couldn't move, right? He just couldn't track with another guard. And so that's a lot different when you got Dasonte Bowen or Tony Perkins or Aaron Ulis like matching up with another guard. Like, I just have more hope. And I think as I look at what transpired last year to this year, I mean, we lost a guy that scored 20 a game, and we really need somebody to grow into that role. I don't know that we'll have a guy that scores 20, but I guess like that's just a huge deal. That's really hard. And then J-Bo was just there for so long, and even though he came back and made it really clear to Joe T, like, hey, I'm not taking your spot, at the end of the day, he did. And credit Fran for some of the adjustments he made at the end of the year, and that worked out. But at the end of the day, we by a guard in the tournament who had, I think, like 55% of their production points and assists. It's like, hey, man, good guard play wins. And so he pushed all the right buttons, but we're replacing a couple players who, just like you said, Tony Perkins, at the end of the day, you can talk forever about it. I'm hopeful that the inexperience we have at positions is now also not some really slow guy who I go, I don't know, I feel like you're kind of limited athletically in terms of what you can do. I don't see that. And so I'm hopeful that, given that basketball is one of those games where you can lose, move on, and in 20 games, you're a totally different team, and our youth at a lot of different positions. I hope we're talking in 20 different games. This is a totally different team, defending a little bit better, a little bit tougher, a little bit more athletic. So I think we have the ceiling to do that.
I will say this final thing, Kyle, for me, I do believe that I kind of got ahead of myself, assuming that because they had the horses, and I do believe they have the horses, I think we're on the same page with this, to defend. It's been widely publicized that Fran is not a guy who spends a lot of time practicing defense in general and the fundamentals of defense, which is frustrating to me.
Super. Yep.
I don't know that that's going to change, or that has changed, because Matt Gatens joins the staff. I don't think Matt is going to change his former coach. But I do believe I have kind of gotten ahead of myself in assuming that, well, you got Tony, you got Aaron, you've got these guys who can defend. Peyton, I've always kind of worried about him. I still worry about him at the Big Ten level defending. But you're right. They upgraded defensively. But Bowen is young, and he's got to get a lot stronger. He'll get better as the year goes on. What is Josh Dix going to give you on the defensive end, especially once we get into Big Ten play? Is he going to give you much? Josh Agundale has not developed. They need Josh. Like today, I was actually observing during the game, like, maybe it's time to get Josh Agundale to get in this game to bang with Lampkin.
Correct.
And Fran just doesn't trust him enough, and he doesn't give you much of anything on offense. So, and he's gassed after a few minutes of play. So I will say this, I agree with you in this, they'll get better as the year goes on. And I do believe they have the horses to be a good defensive team. They're never going to match the physicality of a Michigan State or a TCU.
Right.
But they do have the horses to be a lot better defensively and on the glass than they were tonight.
That's great. Thanks, Corey. Appreciate your time.
All right, folks, we are plugging along here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Before we get to our next caller, want to take a moment to thank Brad Van Meter and his team down at State Farm in Des Moines. Of course, State Farm, the largest auto insurance retailer, I should say, in the U.S. They've got 3 fully licensed team members down at Brad's office to help you navigate through the complex insurance world. They've been in business since '99. They offer products border to border across the state of Iowa. Give his team a call at 515-256-6480 or visit them online at bradvanmeter.com. And of course, as you can see in the upper right-hand corner, this 30-minute segment brought to you by Iowa Floor Covering. Visit their website at iowafloorcovering.com/DIY. All right, let's move on to Tony. Tony, welcome to the show, sir.
How you doing, Corey?
Doing okay. I'm doing all right, Tony. How are you?
Good. I want to answer the burning question that has been burning at you probably for the last 24 hours. It is pronounced Niceville.
Niceville. Okay.
And they actually have a town, or like a billboard right in front of the town that says, "Nice town, nice folks." I got this. I know someone who lives down in Pensacola, and I had to ask the question because you were wondering about Niceville. Trying to think of positive things. It was a nice town. We played it.
It's fine. Now that you told me that, Tony, I'll probably never have a reason to pronounce that town again. So thank you.
Hey, we might play in that tournament again in a few years. You never know.
Let's hope not. That was not a very inspired crowd.
No, it was not. It looked like a high school game.
It did.
I kind of echo some of the things that Kyle said. Like it's a young season. I think there's a lot of hope with the defense. Like he said, we do have some athletes that we did not have in the past. Like I love J-Bo. He was limited athletically, and I think he admits that too. And I think this team will maybe be able to overcome some of those defensive limitations in the future. I also think that Fran tried almost everything. He was trying lineups. He was trying changing defense, and just nothing worked. It was just one of those nights. And I'll try to remember next time Coach closes on, is this one of those games as a coach that you don't even show the video and you just, you hear the flush it type games where you just flush the video, you just say, just wasn't our night and we move on? Or
I mean, I'm not a coach, Tony. That'd be a better question for Gary, but boy, I don't think it's that at all. Personally, I think there's so much on tape that they have to learn from tonight. They got exposed in a number of ways, and I think you absolutely dissect this tape in every way imaginable. I think it's too early to just use that philosophy of we just got to flush it, because they have not been exposed yet, Tony. So
no.
They need to use this. They need to use the tape, I think, this evening to figure out how to match. Again, I think it comes down to matching physicality. And look, the defensive end, I mean, I am disturbed by how many easy back cuts there were for TCU in this game, how many easy layups, how many open threes. And they didn't even shoot the ball that well from behind the arc. But you just can't expect to win ball games. And then fouling, I mean, the inability to defend without fouling. These two teams were even on turnovers. So it's not like Iowa just turned the ball over. I mean, they turned the ball over more than they normally would. I think, 14 turnovers for the day. Officially 15 turnovers. So I think just figuring out a way to instill in your guys that, look, we're going to be going up against these types of teams in this conference, whether you're talking about Michigan State or you're talking about Ohio State. Purdue's going to give you something that no other team out there can give you, in a guy who's like 7'4". So they got a ways to go, but I personally believe you dissect this tape inside and out, but I could be wrong.
I think another team you meant you probably had in your mind but didn't mention, it was Wisconsin. This team almost seems like a carbon copy of those Wisconsin, where they're going to slow it down, they're going to muck it up, they're going to, and Iowa needs to learn to get tougher against these teams that are physically tough. Their time. Go ahead.
I was going to say that TCU's got much better athletes than Wisconsin ever has.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's just a style of play thing. I think I was more referring to the style of play where TCU's not looking to run
Sure.
ever. That they're going to slow it down and muck it up. And sometimes sometimes during the game the commentators saying, "Well, Iowa wasn't challenging, on defense, or they weren't being physical." Well, that's not Iowa's brand. They don't ever be physical, and they I think need to learn. This is one of Fran's weaknesses: learn how to beat teams that play like this. When you don't have shots.
Yeah, I will say this too. So they got out rebounded. I mean, rebounding is one aspect of what happened this evening. And for totals for the game, Iowa was out rebounded 41-28. And the reason I bring that up is I was at that Iowa State game in Ames last year when Iowa got out rebounded by like 25. And the Illinois game, which was I think either right after or right before the Iowa State game, where they got out rebounded by like 25. And those games were you walked away from those games thinking, oh my gosh, they're so bad on the glass. And a lot of that is defensive rebounding, right? That's an aspect of defense, no question about it. You got to finish off good defensive possessions by securing a board. But what I was impressed with last year is Iowa found a way to improve on the glass. They weren't great, and they're not going to be great defensively. I mean, they're never, Tony, this is not earth-shattering to you. They're never going to be great defensively under Fran McCaffrey. They're just not going to be. That's just not who they are. I mean, I think if you can be top 40, that's unbelievably good, because you're probably going to have a top 5 to top 10 offense in the country. But they were able to be good enough last year. And I know people want to point to that Richmond loss in the tournament. They were good enough last year to make it to the second weekend playing like they were playing once you hit March. So the defensive effort was not there tonight. They have the horses, and I do hope that this is just, we look back at this game kind of like the DePaul game a couple of years ago. That was early, and they got boat raced in that game against DePaul. Completely boat raced. And that was not a very good DePaul team, for the record. This was a much better TCU team. It was on a neutral court. You can use this. That ended up being a pretty good Iowa team. This is an early game. You hate to lose it, but you got Iowa State and Duke. Listen, if they go out and beat Iowa State and Duke in a week or 2 weeks, whatever it is, we're not even talking about this game.
I would be happy in that stretch. I want to make sure I got the stretch right, to go win 2 of those 3. Yeah, Duke, Iowa State, Wisconsin.
Yeah, I mean, Wisconsin's okay. I don't think I think the verdict is very much out on all 3 of those teams. Duke struggled against who did they struggle against? They should have lost to
I know what you're talking about. I forgot. I can't remember the game, but yeah.
Was it Portland?
They did not. It sounds right. Let me look at it real quick.
Yeah, one of those teams that should have lost to Portland. They have struggled. Now, they did bounce back with a win against Xavier.
Oregon State.
Yeah, should have lost to Oregon State. You have the Iowa State wins, but UNC is tremendously overrated right now. Villanova's not healthy at all. I think they're 2-4. So the verdict is still out on Iowa State. Those are good teams, no question about it. But I'm just saying those games are not unwinnable. And the Wisconsin game's at home. So we got a long ways to go before I'm just declaring those games losses. And they could go 3-0. Imagine if they go 3-0 that week, Tony. Can you imagine that?
I can. I'm always optimistic. You're going to find that out about me. I'm optimistic about this. I'm not throwing in the towel just yet.
No, absolutely not. And as bad as it felt this evening, yesterday they didn't play well and found a way to win. So, and they were hanging around at halftime. I tweeted that out at halftime. Look, they're down 2. I said they didn't play well defensively at all. They haven't matched TCU's physicality, and yet they were only down 2. So
and they still couldn't hit the broad side of the bar.
No, I mean, 3-point shooting. I don't know if it's. I'd love to get the players' perspectives if it was the gym, because nobody really shot well from 3. Like TCU didn't shoot well from 3. Clemson didn't shoot well from 3. I don't know. It's just a bad gym.
This is like the sight lines, maybe. Because it's more compact. It looked like a high school gym. I think I remember the scoreboard reminded me of like those old scoreboards with the little individual lights and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I won't take up too much more of your time. Just remind everyone to like, subscribe, and I got my merch. I got the notification today that the merch is on the way from UPS. So I'm excited about
Merch,
that.
man. Appreciate you giving a shout out to the merch. Yeah, definitely. If
Yes.
people haven't gotten the merch, certainly check out our merch line. Appreciate you supporting everything, Tony. I do.
Yeah, not a problem. And Tuesday, we'll see you. And Coach Close might be back on Tuesday.
Coach Close will be here Tuesday. Hopefully, we should be. Not to jump the gun, Georgia Tech was awful last year. We should be talking about a win Tuesday night against an ACC opponent. So,
and Ken Palm, I just looked. He really didn't move our projections based off this one game. So let's just all keep in mind it's one game. We'll learn from it, move on, and we're at least playing quality opponents, in the non-conference.
That TCU is a quality opponent. Best team they've played. Thank you, Tony.
Yep. Have a good day.
All right, we've got Ryan, James, and Doug here waiting on hold. We had somebody on the phone line. If you call the phone line, folks, just hang tight. I'm going to put you on hold. You're not going to hear anything, but that means you're on hold. So hang tight because I'm not ignoring you. Let's get to Ryan. Ryan, welcome to the show.
Hey, Corey. How are you? Sure you're doing well.
How are you?
Still trying to get over yesterday afternoon a little bit, but yeah.
That's going to take a while to do that, I think.
I had a dream that we had Tristan Wirfs back with Nate Stanley, with Ricky Stanzi, and
wow,
TJ Hawkinson. What hurts is I think I told you before, my boss is a diehard Nebraska fan. So I have to decide if I'm even coming back to work.
You can quit your job, Ryan? Just quit it. Just quit the job.
He's actually a really good guy. It's tough.
Yeah, for the record, by the way, that's why you can't stereotype fans, because I had a roommate that I was real close with and respect the heck out of, really good friend of mine, and he's a huge Nebraska. This is obviously years ago, but he's a big Nebraska fan, and he and I had a great relationship. So no, you can't stereotype fan bases.
No, he's pretty Hawkeye friendly, actually, and that was until yesterday. The whole time I've known him, we were whooping him, so that one's tough. Now, regarding tonight, I'm not terribly concerned because it kind of reminds me, like you were saying, of last year a little bit, getting whooped on the boards, and we still came back and gelled. Few thoughts I had, gone are the days under Fran where, with Tom Davis, we were top 5 in rebounding pretty much every year. We were a rebounding juggernaut, and I'm sure Coach Close will probably mention that at some point when he's on the show. Fran looks for a little bit more of a gazelle, the tall, lean guy who runs the court first and foremost. And I guess I thought with TCU, you kind of had the best of all worlds. You had that Lumpkin. Good God, give me him. That big body who was athletic. He defended. He ran the floor. He's like the dream for Fran. I'm hoping we get Dembele and Owen Freeman are ready to go. They're going to be freshmen next year. But at the end of the day, I still think we need the 3-headed monster on the floor more often. I was very disappointed. Here you got Ulis and Bowen dominating the first half, and they seem to lose minutes at the expense of Josh O and Josh Dix a little bit too much. I know those two were in at the 10-minute mark when we were down about 20, and I thought it was almost early to be going to that kind of lineup in extended minutes for a Josh Dix when.
Well, they're down 20, Ryan.
Well, yeah, and we were down 13 at the end of the day. I think that's still early to throw in the towel.
Well, I don't know.
Where was the Sunday Bowen in the second half,
Ryan? But what I'm saying is you're down 20 because those guys weren't playing well in that moment. You're right. They brought it in the first half, but those guys were not playing well in the second.
Well, Patrick got less minutes today, but he was an absolute non-factor coming off one of the better games of his career.
And he's listen, he is a perfect example, Ryan. And I love Fran McCaffrey. I love Patrick, love Connor, but Patrick is a perfect example of what Fran kind of wants, right? I mean, he wants a guy who's long. You use the term gazelle. I think you're onto something there. Now, Patrick is a little bit more athletic than your typical 6'8". Like, he's not Jared Utoff. Like, I think Jared Utoff had good athleticism. Patrick has very good athleticism, but he gives you lose something from a physicality standpoint when Patrick is on the court. And a lot of that's not his fault. He's obviously his medical issues have been well documented. And I think that's a facet when you play a team like TCU. He played well against a physical Clemson team, but this is a whole different level of physicality today against the Horned Frogs. He is the perfect example of some of the struggles they're going to deal with. And look, you brought up Dembele and
Owen Freeman
here. Brock Harding's going to have a learning curve because he's got quickness, he's got some athleticism, but he's a bit undersized. And I think he's going to have to get a lot stronger before he's ready. I mean, he's a senior in high school, so we don't want to jump the gun on this. But that's the thing with Desante Bowen. I loved what Desante did in that first half, but he also got pushed around in the second. He's just not strong enough yet. He's just not there yet. But I'm encouraged by Aaron Eulis and how he's playing defensively and, frankly, offensively. Tony didn't have a good showing this weekend. And remember, he did come off the injury, so maybe there's a bit of a lingering effect there. He got into foul trouble yesterday. But I keep thinking they've got the horses. A couple of the horses are young, but I'd like to think they'll get it figured out.
Tony was 7 of 15 points, 3 steals. I kind of disagree. He had a bad showing. He was clutch when it mattered yesterday.
I don't think he's playing well defensively, Ryan. When I say bad showing, and I love Tony Perkins, but Tony Perkins to me is their best defender, and I just don't see this weekend. I did not see max effort from Tony Perkins on the defensive end. I just didn't.
I agree. Like how we played the Seton Hall. Now, granted, we were up at the Seton Hall game. And at the end of the day, if you shoot the 3 well, you're probably going to win the game, is how I find an awful lot of college basketball games go. And we certainly did not shoot the 3 today. Chris was off. I have no doubt he'll come back with Georgia Tech and then Duke right behind it. I really do believe that. We are kind of a finesse type team, and the rebounding, I think we all know, is going to be a problem. We have some size coming next year. Now, as far as Brock Harding goes, I'm excited for him.
I am too.
But he's one guy who, if he took a year to get stronger and I don't know, maybe even redshirt, it wouldn't hurt next year at all when you got Bowen, Eulis, and Perkins back.
He's going to redshirt.
And he should. And
he will absolutely redshirt, yeah.
And who knows, maybe him and Amarion Nimmers, I mean, that guy could probably be in line, for a scholarship as well. I kind of like what your first caller, I think his name was Alex, said, and I totally agree. It's a guards game, and we have different kind of guards now. We'll probably never be terribly physical, like a Michigan State, because you just don't find too many of the guys that size that run the floor as required with Iowa. That being said, I'm putting an awful lot of hope in Owen Freeman and Laje Dembele for next year. If you remember, granted a much worse team, but Melson Basabi as a freshman held his own pretty darn well. And if we get a similar effort from one or both, then along with Patrick, assuming Chris goes, with Patrick underneath, and then, your guards plus both Sanford brothers, we probably still have a really nice nucleus going forward.
I agree, Ryan. You learn from this, and they do. I see the comment here from Steve says, no, that's not. Sorry, wrong comment. Somebody made a comment about the schedule coming up with Duke and Iowa State. Iowa State is very physical. So,
I didn't watch them, but are they? Their guards did all the scoring, and they didn't seem to have a lot underneath. And I'm basically looking at the box score.
Caleb Grill's not the most physical kid in the world. Osuni, he's a kid Iowa wanted badly from St. Bonaventure. And I just feel like, you look at last year, I know Iowa State lost a lot. But, man, I was at that game, Ryan, in Hilton. Iowa got completely pushed around. I mean, completely pushed around. I don't remember another game besides maybe that one I brought up in 2013 where Iowa got completely outmatched physically, more so than that game last year. And that Iowa had Keegan Murray last year in that game. And so, boy, Chris has got to play better. This team in general has to bring it physically. And this is the rebound here on Tuesday with Georgia Tech coming to town is the perfect rebound because you're still playing a Power 5 team, an opportunity to gain confidence back at home, and that's not a great Georgia Tech team. Now, if they lose Tuesday, I'm not hitting the panic button, but that's a bad loss. They got to win Tuesday.
Agreed. Totally agree. Yeah. I'm not going to hit the panic button. It would have been nice to go 38-0 or whatever. It's been 76 since we had an undefeated team. No, in all seriousness, I'm really hoping that we can at least get over the hump and get it to a Sweet 16. I know a couple years ago we tied for second. We typically always fall on good years, 4 or 5. Hopefully we're in that range this year in the Big Ten. We did lose quite a bit in the Big Ten out of individual players. Indiana's probably going to be the team to beat, but we'll see what happens.
Appreciate the call, Ryan, as always, sir. Thank you.
Have a good one.
Brian, couldn't disagree with you more. One bad showing or even two bad showings, if you want to argue that. And Ryan made a good point. Tony's final stat line tonight, still 15 points, 7 of 15 from the field. He's got to distribute the ball better. No assists in this game, which is not a good stat for your point guard, right? Your starting point guard probably, but I like what he brings you at point guard. So to me, I don't think you want him at an off spot. Actually, honestly, I like what they did against Seton Hall on the road. And Seton Hall, again, does not give you what TCU is going to give you physically. So this is going to be a week-by-week team that I think is very matchup driven. And we're going to get a litmus test again in about 2 weeks because you're going to get Georgia Tech. You'll get a week off. Hopefully some of these things will be worked on. You're not going to be able to get a whole lot of work on these things between now and Tuesday. I think you should be able to beat Georgia Tech regardless, hopefully. And then you move on and you've got a trio of physical, difficult games, 2 of which are at home, 1 of which is on a neutral site out in MSG, a place they're familiar with. So appreciate the comment, though, Brian. Let's get to Doug and then James. Doug, welcome back to the show, sir.
Yeah. Can you hear me, Corey?
I can hear you loud and clear.
I'm calling from Fort Walton Beach, Florida. I went to the game today. So
we're at the game, okay.
Yeah, we're at Raiders Arena with my nieces and nephews. Spent Thanksgiving down here. It's now raining, so it's not the greatest vacation, but it was interesting. Have you at the arena, so please don't judge me too hard. But
it's
it
okay.
was an interesting game.
Was the crowd as kind of lackadaisical as it seemed like on television?
Yeah, there wasn't that many people there. The crowd was better yesterday. It was mostly Iowa people there. We had like Hawkeye Elvis there and stuff, but it's small arena. There wasn't much atmosphere there. I'm pretty sure they heard me being annoying to them. But it was a small crowd, and there wasn't much atmosphere there. So
did it feel the same in person as it felt like on TV? Just that Iowa physically just got dominated in every aspect of this game.
Yeah, the big man didn't seem to play well. What was it, number 4? He seemed to have quite a few putbacks. The shots weren't falling. It's actually funny. I got to talk to Michelle Murray and Chris's mom, and it just was sad. They couldn't make a 3, and I heard a statistic once: if Iowa makes 10 threes in the Fran era, they win 90% of the games or something like that, and they just couldn't make a 3. our big man struggled, and it was rough. I mean, I'm glad we came down here. It was like I said, I would tell most people if Iowa comes back here to come down here because it's a fun trip and not all that far, and there's direct flights from Des Moines here. So,
And you live in Des Moines, Doug?
I live in Ames. I live next to you, buddy.
You live right in Ames. Okay, I did know that.
Story County. Yep.
Okay.
Live in Story County all my life. I hope. Awesome. Yep. I like I said before, I'm the real Hawkeye of the storm. I got bullied all through high school and elementary school with the Hawkeye stuff. So
you can relate to the channel, and you actually understand the channel name. I appreciate that
very well. Like I said, one of the greatest things was through elementary school, my first 15 years of life, Iowa did not lose a football game against Iowa State, not until '98, and so it was easier then to be a Hawkeye fan in Ames than it is now. But yeah.
Well, Doug, I'm glad you made it down there, and we did see the Iowa contingency down there. So brighter times are ahead. This is an early game, and I'll be anxious to get Gary's. We'll get another game before we get to actually talk with Gary on the air. But again, this is a learning experience, and there are a lot of young pieces on this team. They do lose a lot of veteran leadership, and this hadn't shown up yet to this point. But hopefully, this is a learning curve and just a bump in the road.
Yeah, we got to make some threes. And
make threes.
Yeah, and the other statistic I have is anytime we hold a team under 70, we have a really good shot of winning too. I don't know what the percentage there is. So, got to stop them from making easy layups and putbacks and stuff like that. But yeah, it just was an off game. There was times in that Clemson game, I wasn't able to talk to you yesterday, that I thought we looked really good. So, I still, if I was W&Ling before the season, I probably would put this as an L. So I'm not too disappointed. I don't know I watched your preseason show. If we like you said, we need to go 2-1 against, Duke, Iowa State, and Wisconsin. Hopefully, 1-2 still will be a great season, but we go 2-1 against those guys. It helps a lot, and we can hopefully have a good NCAA resume. I think this is an NCAA team. I just don't know where the seed will be. Because we were talking about them needing to make the Sweet 16 this year. Again, that's a lot of matchups and seed, and we need to win a couple of these. Clemson helps. Losing to TCU probably doesn't hurt that much. I mean, it's a quad 1 loss. It's not like a quad 3 loss. So
is it a quad 1? Do you think it's going to be a quad 1 loss?
Yeah, it's top 50 neutral site.
So, but you think TCU's top 50 right now? They lost to Northwestern State. I'm not saying they won't end up there, but
so the 6th or 7th best team in the Big 12 will be a top 50 team in the net.
I agree with you that this was a game that was probably a toss-up, maybe even favored TCU heading into the year. I did not expect TCU to lose to Northwestern State. Now, I understand. I don't believe Miles played in that game, so I get the context. Oh yeah, and he changes the whole dynamic of that team. And they were also down their second leading scorer this evening, so that team has a chance to be really good again this year, which does not surprise me. I thought they were really good last year. Got kind of again put over the barrel in the tournament by the officials. Should have been Sweet 16 if it hadn't been for a couple of bad calls against Arizona in the NCAA tournament. So I'm with you. I understand that you could have projected this game to be a loss, but after that Northwestern State loss a couple of weeks ago, I kind of assumed that Iowa would be able to go down here and kind of roll. But I didn't expect Miles to be back. So that was kind of the X factor. If Miles hadn't played, I think this game could have went completely different, complete 180.
Yeah. And Jamie Dixon's a very good coach. And I remember that NIT game we had a few years ago with them. And, TCU is just that really tough team. And, I think that Jamie Dixon has them going the right way. And, we decided to move forward. Like you said, got to get Georgia Tech at home. That's because I don't think Georgia Tech will be a quad 1 win. Georgia Tech's in the middle of the ACC at best, maybe 12th or 13th. And
I want to clarify this. So Steve says, well, TCU is the first team out of the top 25 right now. The the quad stuff does not apply to AP poll, coaches poll, none of that
Yep.
stuff. That's based on the net rankings, which we don't have yet.
Yep.
All right. So that's why I said what I said. Now, where are they in Ken Palm right now? Do you know this off the top of your head?
I have
Doug?
no idea. Like I said, I've had spotty internet for the whole week down here in Florida.
Let me look here. So TCU right now is 39th in Ken Palm. So you're right, as of right now. But I mean, I know Ken Palm is not net, but I kind of they're typically somewhat similar, somewhat in the range. Right now, that would be a quad one loss. Or quad one loss, yes, for Iowa. And it's not there's in no way is this going to be a bad loss on a neutral court against a team that just got back their star player. So yeah, I mean, it could have been a lot worse. I think losing to Clemson would have been the worst case scenario. You get a loss to Clemson, who's they're okay, they're not great, and then you get Cal. I mean, that talk about holding your schedule down. That'd have been a disaster. Played Cal.
That's one of the worst Pac-12 teams there is. So
that's one of the worst. No, that's one of the worst Power 5 teams that's ever played. It's one of the worst Power 5 teams that's ever played, Doug. So
yeah, and I like you said, right now we're still okay. We beat Seton Hall on the road. That has to be close to a quad one win. And I just like getting through Wisconsin healthy and winning hopefully most of those games. But like I said, we're coming back. They'll be playing at home on Tuesday. That's a really big game. They went on Tuesday. This game, yes, move forward. But they just didn't shoot well down here. And the other teams were very physical. It was very physical down here. I don't know if you could notice that on television. They both Clemson and TCU played very physical against Iowa, and
they did.
There was a lot of again. When you're closer to the action, sometimes you think there's a lot more no calls. There was a lot of, pushing and shoving. I think Phillip held his own. I think Phillip needs to still be more, physical. Josh tries. He's just, he's Josh. He does a good job, but
he's not very skilled.
Yeah, he tries.
He's not very skilled, and he's not in shape.
Yep. Yeah.
So, that's not a good combination. And Riley Mulvey's not close either. I love the kid. He's not close either.
Yeah, when we're outmanned on our bigs at the 5 position, and we can't make threes, it is disastrous. And even teams in the lower part of the Big Ten can beat us. But if we can make our threes, play physical, out rebound teams, I'm sure Coach Close would agree with me. We can win games against this competition. I'm not worried against Omaha or Eastern Illinois, and I think we're all make the NCAA. I just hope we make a good enough seed where we can make that Sweet 16 for the first time since '99. As we've talked, it's really a matchup thing. So we have to get a good seed and have a good matchup. But this team ain't bad. They have pieces, and Peyton needs to. I'm hoping Peyton can get out of his slump. We talk about sophomore slumps. He seems like a really great player. I'm glad his brother's coming, but we really need him to, and several of the younger players to step up.
Yeah, he's got to give you something. He's in the starting lineup. He's got to give you something because right now, Aaron Ulis looks more deserving of being in the starting lineup than Peyton Sandfort. So
he looked good yesterday.
I thought he looked good today. I thought he's their best defender today.
Yeah. Yeah, probably was the best defender. Nobody can make a shot.
Ulis ended up for the game. He had 15 points in the game. He was their leading scorer. He tied Tony Perkins for being leading scorer in this game.
Well, I don't want them to make a change in the starting line, but I haven't looked at your chat. I think Peyton, again, I don't know if Peyton should be our 2, but, he is a very good shooter, and that's something we need. Now, if he can't shoot,
gotta make shots.
So, yeah, like I said,
right now he can't shoot.
Yeah, maybe he should.
You know, it's one of those things. If your shooters aren't making shots, probably a bad sign.
Yeah. Well, like I said, Aaron's doing a pretty good job. And Tierney scored 15 points in his defensive effort. Maybe they should think about it. But I don't, like I said, right now, let's see how they do against Georgia Tech. It's one loss, and we'll see after Georgia Tech if they're still struggling with the shot and what they need to do there. So,
absolutely, Doug. Appreciate the phone call, sir, as always.
Yeah. And like I wanted to tell one last thing. This trip is pretty amazing. So if they come back here in 4 or 5 years, I would recommend others to come down here. Both they have direct flights and it's not that far. And everything's, the tickets were fairly cheap and stuff. So thank you again. I really appreciate your show, Corey.
Thank you, Doug. Appreciate you being a part of it. All right. Let's move along to a guy who says can never win in an in-season tournament, might as well stop doing them. My, oh my.
Hey, I'm just frustrated because I feel like...
No, listen, James. You do realize that Connor McCaffrey, who still plays at Iowa, one of his teams won an early season tournament just how many years ago? 5 years ago?
He's also been there for like 6 years. So
they haven't played in tournaments. They haven't. Listen, this is their first tournament in 3-4 years.
It just feels like we can't win because we can't win like the big one. You know what I'm saying? Like we can get there, but then we can't win the final one.
They beat Oregon and UConn back to back.
Yeah, I know. I just get frustrated.
Square Garden. What do you want?
I want not that kind of effort. What I mean by that is like
TCU tonight. I wanted them to beat TCU too.
What I mean was by like. So first off, we brought up the rebounding issue, right? Me and Gary have said something about the rebounding issue where like we felt like it was going to be an issue at some point. And obviously this game it showed. And I feel like I was looking at Iowa State, like they have some size. Robert Jones is like 7 foot. He's gonna have it. He's probably gonna have a heyday for Iowa State. He's gonna have a heyday probably, getting the rebounds because he's 7 foot and tough to guard. But one thing I don't understand is why were we playing that defense?
Why weren't we playing defense?
No, like the defense we were playing, like, okay, if you watched it, they would double, right? And then they would swing, kick, get the wide open look because they kept doubling, or they swing and get a back cut because they're playing too far up and not looking at the next guy.
Well, their man wasn't good. They briefly tried to go to the zone. Their press wasn't good. I don't have an explanation. I don't have an answer for you. None of it was good, obviously.
I'm not saying that, but I'm saying like when they brought the press, they had the press. And they come back and get out of the press, right? Then they had the zone, and then a couple times where like they would send it to the big that's down low, right? They would double him, and they kick it back up top, and they swing it to the corner, and nobody get to the corner. They would just be standing there watching him shoot the three. And I'm just like, what are you doing? Like I don't understand why you're just leaving them wide open.
Fundamental defensive play and not moving. I mean, to me, that's why I don't. A lot of people have attributed Iowa's defensive struggles to, well, they don't have athletes. Well, Wisconsin never has athletes. James.
I agree with you on
that. That's the type of guy that Wisconsin has. They have Brad Davison, all right? But they have guys who are well coached on the defensive end, and they struggle at times on the offensive end. I guess those things kind of even themselves out, at least with a team like Iowa. Wisconsin's had more tournament success, but those teams have been comparable. Wisconsin, certainly during the Fran era, Wisconsin has won more championships, has been deeper in the tournament. But as far as regular season wins, those teams are comparable. So it is what it is. I do wish Fran, I've been saying this for a long time, I wish that Fran would prioritize defense. I don't know how else to put it. By all accounts, it's not a huge priority. I think in recent couple of years, we've seen it become more of a priority. I think we've seen an improvement, but that's also a result of the horses you have, the guys you have in the court, like Tony Perkins, Keegan Murray. Chris Murray's a better defender than he's showing right now. I mean, like Chris and Ulis and Perkins and Rebraca and Connor, those guys are good enough those guys are decent defenders individually. Right now, I don't see, at least in this tournament, I didn't see the effort defensively. And they were worse today than they were yesterday, but they weren't great either game.
Yeah, but the same thing I was saying late yesterday too. Sometimes where it'd be like swing. They give it to the post and they kick it back up top, then swing, have somebody wide open again because nobody gets it.
I get you. Yeah.
Or late in the game, like Clemson yesterday, where they had the three before the number one dude hit the three to like make a 2-point game. The one before that where they swing and then dude was wide open up top because nobody got out there, and it's let him hit a three. I'm like, bro, you're only up 5. Why are you just giving them wide open threes?
Yeah, I tweeted out today, James. I said Iowa can't get stops.
Yeah.
It comes down to that. I mean, Iowa was within 4, right? I mean, they were within 2 at halftime. They were keeping it within 4 a lot of that second half, at least the first half of the second half. But you're never going to be able to complete any sizable or any comeback of any size because you can't consistently get a clean stop, which involves securing a rebound. So Iowa, the misses that were the shots that were missed, or the shots that were forced to be missed, however you want to look at it, more often than not, they ended up being offensive rebounds for TCU, and second chance points killed them. You look at the box score tonight. You want to guess real quick how many second chance points TCU had?
Well, I know we got out rebounded like 41-28. I seen that or something like that. 42-20 or something like that.
17 second chance
yeah,
points.
Yeah. I was gonna say usually when you get out rebounded by that much, it's gonna be up in that number.
Do you want to know how many points in the paint TCU had in this game?
Probably. Let's see what they scored. 78.
77.
Say 77. So probably like 30, high 30s to low 40s.
58. James,
Dang, that's way more than I thought they would.
Well, layups and dunks.
But the thing is, you see us too. When we try to shoot layups, we just look like we couldn't even shoot a layup. We'd get like bumped and then be like, "Oh wow, well, what happened?" We just threw the ball up in the air. Like it looked kind of soft. Like they were playing with a lot of aggression. And we just looked like we couldn't match the aggression, even going for a layup. Like you gotta know, you play in the Big Ten, right? Most of these guys, you play in the Big Ten. You got to understand that there's aggression whenever you go to the hoop. You're gonna get contact, right? You just got to learn to fight through it. It seemed like they were just getting bumped and just like throwing it up. Not even getting bumped sometimes. They'll just throw it up and straight miss.
You want an example? Listen to the difference here. Points in the paint against TCU, they gave up 58 points in the paint. Game on the road at Seton Hall, Iowa gave up just 32 points in the paint. And that is an indication of lack of physicality. But just defensive effort in general, I think, because way too many easy drives. How many back cuts turn into easy layups in this game? You talked about lack of help defense, dunks out of the press. They had a number of issues this evening. Not much resistance from Iowa's during either half.
I feel like we're missing out. And both games we were airballing a lot. Like it wasn't even like close. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you just airball a lot of shots. Like you're shooting shots and they're not even close. And it's like they just seem like they didn't have that confidence. You know what I'm saying? Like they're just like shooting stuff up just to shoot stuff up sometimes because they were struggling. And it was airballing or not going in, and it's like you just dug us deeper in a hole, especially in this game than it did Clemson.
I agree.
And then obviously Georgia Tech's not great, but obviously you still got to be careful with the rebounding factor. And I think Chris will bounce back. Obviously, I just think sometimes you go in those neutral site games and it's a little struggle because the sight lines are different. Or
both of these teams that Iowa played knew exactly where Chris was going at all times. So Chris likes to go over the same shoulder, kind of reverts back to the same move. And look, he's still new at this as far as being the guy. And I hope he's going to have to learn from this because teams are going to have him as priority number 1 in their scouting report. And, he's got to learn. Keegan Murray had some games like this, James. He did.
Yeah, you're right.
You go back, he did, even last year. So I think Chris can figure things out, but he's going to have to figure out how to counteract what opposing teams are doing because the first couple of weeks of the season, it's kind of fresh blood, and now he's on the scouting report. They're seeing what he's doing on tape, and the ball is in his court, literally and figuratively, to get to counteract it. And by the way, you mentioned Georgia Tech. You said, well, they're not that good. They got blown out by Marquette at home, or excuse me, on a neutral court. They got blown out by Marquette. Now Marquette, decent program. They also Georgia Tech also lost to Utah by 4, but they haven't lost to anybody but Power 5 teams. But you're absolutely right. Based on last year and who they have returning, who they don't have returning, Iowa should win this game. Yeah. ESPN Analytics has them as a 9-1 favorite right now.
Yeah, and then one thing too, you brought up Seton Hall, how the points in the paint stuff, but I feel like Seton Hall played us really aggressive. Like they did play us really aggressive. But, like, it took us, 4 minutes, 5 minutes to match them, after that first timeout or whatever, the media timeout. But then we came up with aggression because maybe, and this is not an excuse, right? They played bad. I'm not saying they didn't play bad, right? But one thing could have been is the crowd was in it at Seton Hall. You know what I'm saying? Like, the crowd was in it. So maybe that fired them up a little bit more, The crowd didn't seem to, obviously, there wasn't that much of a crowd there. and obviously it shouldn't get that way, but maybe they just kind of got, you know what I'm saying? Like, they were getting aggressive, but then Iowa kind of fought back and then got aggressive. You know what I'm saying? With them a little bit, or fought with their aggression. But then, like this game, they fought back, and it just seemed like they never like could carry that momentum to get over the hump of trying to get the lead. You know what I mean? Like, it just seemed like they never like got matched the aggression like they did at Seton Hall.
Yeah, I agree
for sure. And it'll be interesting to see because we get Georgia Tech, and then we get 10 days. Like I said, we get a week after that. So if we can beat Georgia Tech, you get a week until you play Duke. So you get time to rest, guys. You know, Tony, if whether he's not 100% or not, can maybe get to 100%, hopefully. You know, and then you can kind of take these days and get a week to relax and rest. It's good for them, you know, because that could get them a better thing. Because maybe Duke plays a couple games in that stretch. I'm not sure, but
yeah, Duke obviously bounced back with that Xavier win. They get Ohio State. They get Ohio. Listen, Duke gets Ohio State and Purdue
in that stretch before we play them.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Ohio State, Purdue, and Boston College, all in that stretch before Iowa.
Yeah, and see, Iowa only plays Georgia Tech, and then they get a week off. I'm pretty sure. I've seen.
Yeah. No, you're right. That's exactly right.
So it could be you get a win. You know, you kind of get in a good move spirit to get a win. You focus on the scouting, and maybe you can focus on trying to find ways to exploit them. Not saying, I mean, obviously, I think we got a chance if we can match their aggression. Obviously, and in this precise game, seems like lately. I mean, last year we didn't win. I mean, in Indy we did, obviously, you know, to win the Big Ten tournament. But like, you know, we lost in obviously the first round, and then here we won the first game, and that was close. It was really close the whole game. And we lost again. So maybe your site might be a little bit of a bugaboo, but I think you'll be all right with that as long as you can get it going. But it's interesting to see. And it wasn't that fun to watch, but it happens sometimes as a basketball fan. You know, you can't win them all. Like J-Bo said on thing, he said it's impossible to go, 32-0, 36-0, he said, or something like that. So obviously you got to, we're going to lose a couple, so it's all about how you bounce back.
Amen, brother.
All right, enjoy your night. I hope you enjoyed your holidays.
Appreciate it, sir. Thank you so much for the call. All right, folks. Well, the final this evening, regretfully, 79-66, the Horned Frogs over the Hawkeyes. And yes, disappointing showing all around. We've talked about the physicality. I don't know how many times I've said that word in the show, probably enough to make people nauseous. But that really was the story of the game. Iowa giving up 58 points in the paint, 17 second chance points. Bench was even 24-24, really kind of a non-factor, if you will. Iowa certainly could have used more from its starting lineup. I thought the bench really gave them a spark. They fell down 9-0, fought all the way back. But again, that was sort of a sign of things to come. Desante Bowen gave them 21 really good minutes, as did Connor McCaffrey, gave him 22 minutes. But, you know, Connor, I thought, struggled defensively at times tonight. Patrick McCaffrey, this was brought up by somebody in our chat. Let me find the comment here. Circle Herc says, Patrick McCaffrey, 37 points, no rebounds, no assists. That is accurate. One turnover, one foul, no points, no assists, no steals, no blocks, no points. Wow. That is mind-boggling, given the night he had before. But again, style of play is important, and although Clemson plays physical, nothing like what TCU gave him this evening. Question here, did Murray hurt his NBA stock this weekend? Way too early for that. I mean, he doesn't help it, right? You have NBA scouts there, and they're seeing one guy put on a show and Crispy a non-factor. Steve says, I'm not sure what this team's identity is going to be. Being so small, it needs to be shooting, I think. Who's going to be the sharp shooters? They have shooters, Steve. They just didn't shoot well, right? Peyton's supposed to be a really good shooter. Josh Sticks is going to give you threes when he's out in the court. I think Tony's improved. Aaron's certainly improved. Connor's got to be a bit more forthright. I think he's proven that he has turned into an adequate three-point shooter. Patrick's, again, struggled tonight from three. I mean, he struggled completely. He was 0 for 5 from the field, 0 for 3 from three. So we'll see. It's too early, Steve, for me to pronounce this team as a poor shooting team, which would be a bad omen. No question about it. Fred says, when is the Herky Iowa Puke Duke game happening? Iowa Duke is in December on the 6th, Fred. And he says, I have a Hawkeye Sports playlist, which also includes From the Hawkeye of the Storm. Thank you for that, Fred. Appreciate you supporting the show. Jared, the actor, thank you for becoming our latest premium member, Jared. Appreciate the support. And if you want to become a premium member, you can follow the instructions on the bottom of your screen. Click the join button next to the Hawkeye of the Storm from the Hawkeye of the Storm YouTube channel name here on YouTube. If you're watching on an iPhone or iPad, you may have to sign in on your desktop, but certainly another way to get a few perks and support the work being done here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Ari Gold. Corey, if Iowa doesn't make the Sweet 16 this year, when is Fran going to be on the hot seat? Won't be after this year, Ari Gold. It'll take a couple more years of that. I don't even know in this day and age with Barta's reputation, I don't think Fran's on the hot seat at all unless he starts not making the tournament. And you may not like that answer, but as long as Barta's here, I think the standard has been set. It's been set for football. It's been set for basketball. Although you got to give Fran credit. They did go out and win a Big Ten championship last March. That cannot be overlooked. I know most people don't equate that to tournament success, quote unquote, but it is tournament success. It's not the tournament that people care about the most. But boy, I tell you, a great 4-day stretch in March, and they played decent defensively and beat a variety of teams. Rutgers is a team that's really aggressive defensively, is very physical, and Iowa beat them in that tournament. So all is not lost. Lemansky, thank you for reminding everybody. Please hit that like button, and please, if you're here and you're enjoying the show, enjoying the content, thank you for being here. But also, think about supporting our sponsors, including Brad Van Meter down at State Farm in Des Moines. Visit him online at bradvanmeter.com or at 515-256-6480. Brad and his team spend countless hours meeting with their customers, meeting annually to review coverages, to see if there's any need for changes, any opportunity to save you more money. Definitely check out Brad Van Meter and his team down at State Farm on Fleur Drive in Des Moines. And, of course, you can follow the link in the description of this video to head to his website, bradvanmeter.com. So thank you, Brad, for being a part of this show as always. And, of course, Josue Alvarez down at Dewey Ford in Des Moines. He will treat you right. He'll treat you better. 515-776-1068. Tell him from the Hawkeye of the Storm sent you, and you'll get a $100 Casey's gas card with any vehicle purchase through Josue, as long as you mention from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Again, down at Dewey Ford in Ankeny. All right, folks, it's been a long, long weekend. Casey, Coach Close is traveling right now, so that's why he's not with us this evening, but he'll be back with us on Tuesday. Of course, the Hawkeyes in action taking on Georgia Tech. Anybody missed it the other day? I do have a new merch line that has dropped, so certainly check that out. I didn't have it in the description at the beginning of the stream, so you may have to refresh the stream. But our merch line is here. In fact, I'll throw it in the live chat if you're curious. This is the link to the new merch store, and more designs, more merch coming here soon. Sharon, am I the only woman here? Sharon, I don't know. I hope not, but appreciate you being here nonetheless, Sharon. Again, as I mentioned, Iowa will take on Georgia Tech this Tuesday, and that game will tip off. I'm going to get the right time here so that we're on the same page. That game will tip off on Tuesday at 8 p.m. All right, Tuesday at 8 p.m. So I'll go ahead and throw this up here so we're all aware. We're all on the same page. Tuesday, of course, the 29th of November at 8 p.m. And, of course, the game will be televised on an ESPN network, which it's not noted on here. So I'm going to say TBA at this point. But again, 8 p.m. and it'll be a Carver Hawkeye Arena game. So get out and support the Hawks on Tuesday. Help them get a bounce back victory against the Yellow Jackets. Appreciate you being here, and thank you for being with us all weekend long. I know it's been an up and down weekend, folks. We've got Iowa UConn women's hoops tomorrow, Sunday. We won't be doing a post-game show live, but we'll be here. So thank you for being here, and stay tuned. More Hawkeye coverage on the way right here from the Hawkeye of the Storm.